The great crystal halls of the Galactic Council sparkled with light from 1,000 different worlds. Representatives from hundreds of alien species sat in their assigned seats, waiting for the day's business to begin. The massive chamber floated in space around a neutron star, its walls transparent enough to see the swirling cosmos beyond. Ambassador Zethkar stood at the central podium, his four arms gesturing as he spoke. The tall, blue-skinned hegemony leader had called this emergency session. His people controlled 30 star systems and commanded respect throughout the galaxy. Honored council members, Zethkar's voice echoed through translation devices. We face a crisis that threatens our established order. The chamber fell silent. Council sessions rarely dealt with true emergencies. Most days involved trade disputes or minor territorial adjustments between peaceful species. Zethkar activated a holographic display above his head. The image showed a solar system with 9 planets, the third one glowing blue and green. This is the human homeworld they call Earth. For the past 50 years, we have monitored their expansion into space. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Many council members had heard stories about humans, but few had direct contact with them. They were a young species, barely capable of faster-than-light travel. At first, we thought them harmless, Zethkar continued. They seemed primitive compared to our ancient civilizations. We allowed them to establish small colonies in unclaimed systems. The hologram shifted to show 3 different star systems. Human ships moved between planets like tiny insects. Their vessels looked crude compared to the sleek designs favored by council species. But now they have gone too far. Zethkar's voice grew angry. These systems have been claimed by various council members for thousands of years. The humans ignore our territorial markers. They build colonies where they please. An elderly representative from the Centauri Federation raised one of her 6 hands. Ambassador Zethkar, have the humans been contacted about these violations? Of course, Zethkar replied. We sent diplomatic messages explaining galactic law. They responded with what they call polite disagreement. They claimed these systems were empty when they arrived. Laughter echoed through the chamber. The idea that any species would simply ignore council authority seemed absurd. For 10,000 years, the council had maintained peace through careful negotiation and respect for established boundaries. What do they want? Asked a delegate from the Vorthan Empire. Zethkar's expression darkened. They want us to recognize their right to settle wherever they choose. They say the galaxy is big enough for everyone to expand freely. More laughter, but nervous this time. Such thinking went against everything the council represented. Order came from careful planning and mutual respect, not from wild expansion. The display changed again, showing recent footage of human colonial ships. The vessels were boxy and functional, carrying thousands of colonists to new worlds. What struck many observers was their determination. Human ships traveled to systems that other species considered too dangerous or too poor in resources. These humans multiply rapidly, Zethkar explained. Each colony ship carries enough people to establish a self-sufficient world within decades. They adapt to harsh environments that would kill most of us. Council members shifted uncomfortably. Most civilized species had learned to control their population growth long ago. The idea of rapid expansion seemed primitive and dangerous. What action do you propose? Asked the council speaker, an ancient being whose species had helped found the galactic government. Military intervention? Zethkar said firmly. The Veltar Armada has just finished pacifying the Centauri rebels. They report that overwhelming force applied quickly prevents larger conflicts. The Veltar representative, a massive insectoid creature, clicked his mandibles in agreement. Our fleet consists of 1,200 vessels. We can reach the human homeworld within 1 week. And if the humans surrender? Asked another delegate. Then they withdraw from all contested systems and agreed to respect Council territorial law, Zethkar replied. If they refuse, we demonstrate the consequences of defying galactic order. The debate that followed lasted 6 hours. Some representatives argued for more diplomacy. Others worried about setting a precedent of military action against young species. But the majority agreed that human expansion could not continue unchecked. When the vote came, 847 council members supported military action. Only 23 voted against it, mostly representatives from species that had established trade relationships with human colonies. The Valtar Armada received its orders within hours. Admiral Kexthar, veteran of a dozen military campaigns, studied the intelligence reports about human capabilities. Their technology seemed at least 2 centuries behind Council standards. Their largest warships were smaller than Veltar escort vessels. This will be finished quickly, the Admiral told his staff. Humans have no experience with real space warfare. Meanwhile, in Earth's orbital space, Admiral Sarah Chun received an urgent communication aboard the UES Defiance. The message came through official Council diplomatic channels, translated into several human languages. Chun read it twice before calling her senior staff to the bridge. The ultimatum was simple: withdraw all human colonies from contested systems within 72 hours, or face military consequences. What's our response, Admiral? Asked Captain Morrison, her second-in-command. Chun looked out at Earth through the bridge windows. The blue planet sparkled with city lights on its night side. Orbital stations and shipyards surrounded the homeworld like a protective shell. In the distance, she could see the construction framework for humanity's newest battleships. Send this message on all Council frequencies, Chun said. We respectfully decline your ultimatum. Earth and her colonies will defend their right to peaceful expansion. We stand ready for whatever comes. The message reached the Veltar fleet as it entered the Sol system. Admiral Kexthar was surprised by the human response. Most species accepted Council authority once they understood the consequences of resistance. Scan their defensive positions, he ordered. The tactical display showed 89 human ships arranged in loose formations around Earth. Most were clearly converted cargo vessels or small patrol craft. Only a few appeared to be purpose-built warships. They cannot seriously intend to fight us, muttered the Admiral's tactical officer. But as the Voltar fleet approached, the human ships did not retreat to defensive positions around their planet. Instead, they accelerated toward the alien armada, engines burning at maximum power. Admiral Kexthar stared at the display in confusion. Are they surrendering? No, sir, his sensor operator replied. They appear to be attacking us. The distance between the fleets closed rapidly. Soon, the first shots of what would become known as the Awakening War began to fly between the stars. The first human ship to reach the Veltar formation was the UES Intrepid, a converted mining vessel with armor welded to its hull. Captain Rodriguez had volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. All power to engines, Rodriguez ordered, as alien energy beams lit up space around his ship. If we're going down, we're taking them with us. Admiral Kexthar watched from his flagship as the small human vessel charged directly at his heavy cruiser. The alien commander expected the ship to fire its weapons or attempt some kind of tactical maneuver. Instead, the Intrepid slammed into the cruiser's hull at full speed. The explosion tore both ships apart, sending debris spinning through space. Kexthar stared at his tactical display in shock. Did they just ram us? Yes, sir, his tactical officer replied, mandibles clicking nervously. Their ship appears to have been loaded with extra explosives. Before the Admiral could respond, 2 more human ships broke through his defensive line. Both vessels ignored the smaller Veltar ships and aimed directly for the largest targets they could find. Ramming speed. Came the transmission from the UES Defiant Spirit. For Earth and humanity. The ship struck a Veltar battleship just behind the bridge. The second human vessel, the Indomitable, crashed into the alien ship's engine section. Both explosions lit up space like miniature suns. Admiral Kexthar had fought dozens of battles across the galaxy. He had seen species surrender when faced with overwhelming odds. He had seen desperate last stands and hopeless defensive actions. But he had never seen anything like this. "They're weaponizing their own ships," he said in disbelief. The human strategy made no military sense. Trading one ship for one enemy vessel was inefficient when outnumbered 15 to 1. Any rational species would preserve their fleet for a fighting retreat. But humans, Kexthar was learning, did not think like other species. Captain Torres of the Indomitable broadcast on all frequencies as her ship dove toward another Veltar cruiser. "If we're going down, we're taking you with us. Remember Earth." The battle lasted only 40 minutes. When it ended, the human fleet was destroyed. But the Veltar had lost 18 ships to an enemy that should have been crushed without causing significant damage. "Begin orbital bombardment," Kexthar ordered. The sooner this madness ended, the better. Energy beams lanced down from the alien fleet, targeting Earth's major cities. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow all came under fire from weapons that could crack continental shelves. In the Council observation post, representatives watched the attack through long-range sensors. Many expected immediate surrender. Surely the humans would see reason once their cities began burning. But something strange happened as the bombardment continued. The cities didn't burn. They simply disappeared. "What are we seeing?" asked Ambassador Zethkar. The sensor operator, a technician from the scientific cast, checked his readings twice. "Sir, the human population centers appear to be moving underground. Massive structures are emerging from beneath their cities. On Earth, blast doors weighing thousands of tons slid shut over subway entrances. Entire city blocks descended on massive elevator platforms. What the aliens had taken for normal urban development was actually an elaborate, shell-hiding underground complexes that went down for miles. Dr. Sarah Kim, director of Earth Defense Planning, stood in the command bunker beneath former New York City. The facility had been under construction for 30 years, ever since humanity's first contact with alien surveillance probes. "Phase 1 complete," she announced to her staff. "All major population centers are now underground. Activate Phase 2. Across Earth's surface, hidden bunkers open to reveal defensive positions that have been carefully camouflaged for decades. Anti-aircraft weapons emerged from fake farms. Missile silos rose from artificial lakes. Entire military bases materialized from what had appeared to be natural hillsides. The Veltar landing forces met resistance that defied all military logic. Human soldiers fought from positions that should have been impossible to hide. They used tactics that prioritized inflicting damage over preserving their own lives. Colonel Martinez led his battalion in a counterattack against alien troops in what used to be downtown Chicago. His soldiers emerged from tunnels that connected every major building in the city center. "Remember the plan," he told his troops. "We don't need to win. We just need to make them pay for every meter." The human strategy became clear as the ground battle continued. They had turned their entire homeworld into a fortress. Every building contained hidden weapons. Every street could become a kill zone. Every civilian shelter connected to a vast underground network. Admiral Kexthar received casualty reports that made no sense. His ground forces should have been facing scattered resistance from a primitive military. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that had prepared for this exact war for generations. "How is this possible?" he demanded. Our intelligence showed humans had no significant military infrastructure. His intelligence officer, a cautious being with excellent vision, pulled up reconnaissance images. Sir, we may have been misled by what we were allowed to see. The images showed Earth as it appeared from space: cities, farmland, and natural wilderness. But thermal imaging revealed the truth. Underneath the surface lay a second civilization, connected by tunnels that ran beneath oceans and between continents. They've been building this since before we made contact, the intelligence officer continued. Every major population center has underground facilities that could support millions of people for decades. The council observers watched in growing alarm as what should have been a 6-hour police action stretched into its third day. The Veltar, veterans of successful campaigns against a dozen species, found themselves losing soldiers to an enemy that refused to follow any known rules of warfare. This is not how civilized species conduct war, muttered the council. Speaker. Ambassador Zethkar studied the tactical reports with growing unease. Perhaps humans are not a civilized species. On Earth, the resistance continued with methodical precision. Human forces emerged from hidden positions, struck at alien supply lines, and disappeared back underground before retaliation could arrive. They had turned guerrilla warfare into a science. Captain Elena Vasquez led a squad through maintenance tunnels beneath what used to be Berlin. Their target was a Veltar communication array that the aliens had set up in the city center. Remember, she told her team, we're not trying to hold ground. Hit them hard, then get back to the tunnels before they can respond. The attack lasted 7 minutes. The human soldiers destroyed the communication array, eliminated 2 squads of alien guards, and vanished back underground before Veltar reinforcements arrived. Similar attacks happened across the planet. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that appeared everywhere and nowhere, striking without warning and disappearing like ghost dot by the end of the first week. Admiral Kekstar sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council. Request immediate reinforcements. Human resistance stronger than anticipated. May require additional time to complete pacification. The message caused uproar in the council chambers. The Veltar Armada was the most powerful military force in the galaxy. If they could not quickly defeat a single primitive world, what did that say about council authority? But the worst was yet to come. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a bunker that went down to the ocean floor, Project Lazarus activated its primary systems. Dr. Kim watched as quantum communication arrays came online across the galaxy. For 50 years, humanity had been building a network that connected every human settlement through instantaneous communication. Send the signal, she ordered. The message was simple. Earth is under attack. Execute Protocol 7. Across the galaxy, on worlds the Council thought held only peaceful human farmers and miners, the message was received. And humanity's true preparations for this war began to reveal themselves. The message from Earth reached Proxima Centauri in 0 time, traveling through quantum entanglement channels that the Council didn't know existed. On the surface, the human colony looked like a simple mining operation with perhaps 50,000 settlers. Commander Liu Jiang received the activation code in his office beneath what appeared to be a mineral processing plant. He had been waiting for this message for 20 years. Execute Protocol 7, he announced to his hidden staff. Across the mining colony, blast doors opened to reveal underground hangars. Launch tubes that had been disguised as mining shafts began cycling their contents to the surface. What the Council had catalogued as a small human settlement was actually a military base housing 500 stealth fighters. The ships launched without warning, their advanced engines barely detectable on long-range sensors. They had been designed specifically to hunt Council vessels, using captured alien technology that humans had been reverse engineering for decades. Similar activations occurred across 12 star systems. The agricultural world of Kepler 438b revealed planetary defense shields that flickered to life around the entire planet. The research station at Wolf 359 deployed a fleet of warships that emerged from asteroid mining facilities dotting Council space. Rear Admiral Vextal of the Hegemony received emergency reports from across his patrol sector. Human ships were attacking installations that should have been far beyond their reach. How did they get ships this deep into our territory? He demanded. His intelligence officer pulled up star charts showing recent human activity. Sir, we may have misunderstood the scope of their expansion. These attacks are too coordinated to be random. The truth was worse than the Admiral realized. For 30 years, human exploration vessels had been mapping every star system within 50 light-years of Council space. They had cataloged resources, identified strategic positions, and established hidden supply depots in systems the Council considered empty. On Earth, Dr. Kim coordinated the galactic response from her underground command center. The quantum communication network allowed her to direct operations across dozens of star systems in real time. Proxima Fleet, proceed to target Alpha 7, she ordered. Wolf 359 Squadron, defensive positions around the research station. Kepler teams, begin Phase 2 operations. The Council's emergency session convened as reports flooded in from across their territory. What they had assumed was a simple police action against one primitive world had become a galactic conflict. "How many human ships are we facing?" asked the Council speaker. Ambassador Zethkar studied the tactical reports with growing alarm. Intelligence estimates suggest several thousand vessels. But that's impossible. We monitored their shipbuilding capacity. The Vorthan delegate raised a disturbing question. What if we only saw what they wanted us to see? The suggestion sent shockwaves through the assembly. The Council's power rested on superior intelligence and technology. If a primitive species had deceived them for decades, what did that say about their other assumptions? On Kepler 438b, the human colony revealed its true nature as defense systems came online. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the colony's supposed agricultural director, was actually a military engineer who had spent 15 years turning the planet into a fortress. "Activate the orbital platforms," she ordered. Around the planet, what had appeared to be communication satellites transformed into weapon platforms. The agricultural processing centers opened to reveal manufacturing facilities that had been producing military equipment for years. The local council garrison sent 3 patrol ships to investigate the sudden appearance of planetary defenses. They never returned. Human military doctrine was unlike anything the council had encountered. Where other species built obvious military installations, humans hid their preparations beneath layers of misdirection. Every colony had dual purposes. Every civilian facility could become a military asset. Admiral Kexthar received word of the expanding conflict while still trying to pacify Earth. His ground forces controlled less than 10% of the planet's surface. And even that territory was contested by human fighters who emerged from hidden tunnels. "Sir," his communication officer reported, "we're receiving distress calls from installations across 4 sectors. Human fleets are attacking targets throughout Council space." Kexthar studied the tactical display showing the spreading conflict. Red markers indicated human attacks across a region of space larger than most empires. "This is not possible," he said. "No species could coordinate operations across such distances." But humans had solved that problem decades ago. The quantum communication network allowed instantaneous coordination across galactic distances. While Council fleets relied on faster-than-light messengers that took days or weeks to carry orders, Human forces could respond to changing situations in minutes. The technology had come from studying captured alien equipment. But humans had improved it in ways the original designers never imagined. Where council species used quantum entanglement for simple communication, humans had created a network that could carry complex tactical data and real-time intelligence. Captain Sarah Miller commanded a stealth cruiser that had been hiding in an asteroid field near a major council shipyard. Her ship looked like a converted cargo vessel, but it carried enough firepower to destroy installations 10 times its size. "Target the construction facilities," she ordered, as her ship emerged from the asteroid belt. "Make sure they can't repair their damaged ships." The attack lasted 12 minutes. Miller's ship destroyed 3 under-construction battleships and damaged the shipyard's manufacturing capability before disappearing back into the asteroids. Similar hit-and-run attacks occurred throughout Council space. Human ships struck at supply lines, communication relays, and manufacturing centers. They avoided direct confrontations with large enemy fleets, instead focusing on disrupting the infrastructure that kept the Council's military functioning. The strategy was working. Council commanders found themselves unable to coordinate responses to multiple simultaneous attacks. Their communication systems, designed for peaceful coordination between friendly species, proved vulnerable to disruption by an enemy that understood how they worked. Ambassador Zethkar called another emergency council session as reports of human attacks reached the capital. "We face a coordinated assault across multiple sectors," he announced to the assembly. "The humans have demonstrated military capabilities far beyond our initial assessments." The Veltar representative clicked his mandibles in agitation. "Our forces report that human technology appears to be adapted from our own designs. They know our weaknesses because they have been studying our equipment." A disturbing possibility occurred to several council members. If humans have been reverse engineering alien technology for decades, what other capabilities might they be hiding? "We need to end this quickly," said the council speaker. "The longer this conflict continues, the more damage they can inflict. But ending the conflict would prove more difficult than anyone imagined." Human forces had spent decades preparing for a war they hoped would never come. They had studied every species in the council, analyzed their military doctrines, and developed specific countermeasures for each potential enemy. On Earth, the surface battle continued with methodical precision. Human defenders used the planet's modified geography to their advantage, channeling alien forces into kill zones that had been prepared years in advance. Colonel Martinez led his troops through the tunnel network beneath former Chicago. His soldiers moved through passages that connected to every major building in the city, emerging to strike at alien positions before disappearing back underground. "The enemy is trying to establish a perimeter around the old financial district," he reported to headquarters. "Recommend we activate the underground charges." The explosions that followed collapsed 3 city blocks, burying an entire Veltar battalion under tons of carefully placed rubble. It was the kind of prepared destruction that took years to plan and execute. Admiral Kekstar watched the tactical reports with growing frustration. Every gain his forces made came at enormous cost. The humans fought like they had nothing to lose and everything to gain from prolonging the conflict. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're receiving priority orders from the Galactic Council. They want a complete assessment of human military capabilities." Kekstar studied the data his forces had gathered. The picture that emerged was deeply disturbing. Humans had been preparing for galactic war since their first contact with alien technology. They had hidden their true capabilities behind a facade of primitive expansion, while secretly building the infrastructure necessary to fight a conflict across multiple star systems. "Send this message to the Council," he ordered. We are not fighting a primitive species. We are fighting an enemy that has been preparing for this war longer than we have been watching them. Admiral Sarah Chen's face appeared on screens across the galaxy as human forces broadcast her message on every Council communication frequency. She stood on the bridge of her ship that should not have existed, the UES Retribution, a massive dreadnought that had been constructed in secret over the past 10 years. To the members of the Galactic Council, Chen began, her voice calm despite the chaos of ongoing battles. You wanted to see what humans do when threatened with extinction. You have made a fundamental error in your calculations. The broadcast reached council chambers as representatives scrambled to understand how the situation had deteriorated so quickly. What had begun as a simple police action had become a galactic conflict that showed no signs of ending. We don't surrender, Chen continued. We don't negotiate when our survival is at stake. We adapt, we overcome, and we ensure this never happens again to us or any other species. Across human space, manufacturing facilities that had been hidden in asteroid belts and dark matter clouds began operating at full capacity. The Council had assumed human shipbuilding was limited to the few orbital facilities they could observe around Earth and the colonies. They were wrong. Commander Lisa Park oversaw production at Facility Omega, a massive construction complex hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid in the Kuiper Belt. For 15 years, automated systems had been building warships using designs reverse-engineered from captured alien technology. Increase production to wartime levels, she ordered her staff. We need to replace our losses and expand the fleet. The facility could produce a complete battleship every 72 hours. More importantly, it could produce 10 smaller vessels in the same time frame. Human military doctrine favored quantity and flexibility over massive individual ships. Similar facilities throughout human space began releasing vessels that had been stockpiled for years. Within a week of Chen's broadcast, human fleets had doubled in size. But the most shocking development came when human forces began deploying biological weapons, specifically designed to target alien HFY Siologi ES. Dr. Marcus Webb had spent 20 years studying alien biology from tissue samples obtained through diplomatic exchanges and medical cooperation programs. His research had always been presented as seeking ways to help injured aliens or understand their dietary needs. The reality was darker. Release Package Alpha 7 against Veltar forces. He authorized from his laboratory beneath the former city of Geneva. Package Beta 3 is authorized for hegemony targets. The weapons were engineered viruses that attacked specific alien immune systems while remaining harmless to humans and other species. They spread through air recycling systems on ships and bases, causing rapid organ failure in affected species. Within days, Council medical facilities reported mysterious illnesses affecting Veltar and hegemony personnel. The diseases seemed to target only specific species, suggesting an understanding of alien biology that should have taken centuries to develop. They've been studying us, Admiral Kexthar realized as medical reports reached his flagship. Every diplomatic contact, every trade exchange, they were gathering biological data. The psychological impact was as devastating as the physical effects. Council species began to understand that humans had been preparing for war against them specifically, studying their weaknesses and developing weapons designed to exploit their physiology. But the biological weapons were only part of humanity's expanding arsenal. Human broadcasts began flooding Council communication networks with footage from Earth's history, wars, genocides, and weapons of mass destruction. The message was clear. Humans had been fighting each other with devastating efficiency for millennia. A species that had survived world wars and nuclear weapons was not going to be Intimidated by alien technology, Captain Rodriguez led a squadron of human fighters in an attack on a Council supply depot near Arcturus. His ships moved in formation that seemed chaotic to alien observers, but followed tactical principles developed through centuries of human warfare. "Remember," he told his pilots, "we're not just fighting for territory. We're fighting to establish a principle. Anyone who attacks humanity faces consequences they won't forget." The attack destroyed the depot and its escort fleet, but Rodriguez made sure to leave survivors. Human strategy included psychological warfare designed to spread fear throughout enemy ranks. The Council's emergency session convened, again, as reports of spreading human attacks reached the capital. Representatives who had voted confidently for military action now faced a conflict that threatened to destabilize their entire civilization. "How do we respond to biological warfare?" asked the Veltar delegate, his mandibles clicking nervously. "More importantly," added the representative from the Vorthan Empire, "how do we respond to an enemy that seems to have been preparing for this specific war for decades?" Ambassador Zethkar studied intelligence reports that painted an increasingly disturbing picture. Human exploration missions had been mapping Council space for 30 years. Their cultural exchange programs had gathered detailed information about every major species. Their scientific research had focused on alien biology and technology. "We have been deceived," he announced to the assembly. "Every peaceful contact with humanity has been part of their military preparation." The revelation sent shockwaves through the Council. Many species had welcomed human traders and researchers, seeing them as curious but harmless newcomers to galactic civilization. The idea that they had been unknowingly providing intelligence to a potential enemy was deeply unsettling. On Earth, the surface battle had evolved into a stalemate that favored the defenders. Veltar forces controlled some urban areas, but human resistance fighters continued to emerge from underground networks that seemed to connect every part of the planet. Lieutenant Sarah Kim led a squad through maintenance tunnels beneath former Tokyo. Her mission was to plant charges that would destroy an alien communication relay. But she carried additional orders that reflected humanity's broader strategy. "Make sure some of them escape," she told her team. "We want them to report what they've seen." The attack followed the new pattern of human operations. Devastating efficiency combined with deliberate psychological pressure designed to demoralize enemy forces. Within 6 months of the initial attack on Earth, human forces had captured or destroyed Council installations across 30 star systems. The conflict had spread far beyond anything the Council had anticipated, and showed no signs of slowing down. More disturbing was the realization that humans were still revealing new capabilities. Intelligence reports suggested they had manufacturing facilities, research installations, and military bases that had never appeared on any Council survey. "They have been building a second civilization," the Council speaker announced during a closed session. "Everything we have observed may be only what they wanted us to see." The Council faced a choice that no one had anticipated when they voted to authorize force against Earth. They could continue the conflict and risk further escalation, or they could seek a negotiated settlement with an enemy that had demonstrated capabilities far beyond initial estimates. Admiral Kekstar sent his final report from Earth's orbit, where his remaining forces maintained a precarious hold on a few surface positions. "Recommend immediate deployment of planet-killer weapons," he wrote. "Conventional forces insufficient to complete pacification. Human resistance grows stronger with time." The report reached the Council as they debated their next move. The suggestion to use weapons banned for thousands of years showed how desperate the situation had become. "If we authorize planet killers," warned the Centauri representative, "we admit that our entire military doctrine has failed." But the alternative seemed worse. Human attacks continued to spread across Council space, disrupting trade and threatening the stability that had maintained peace for 10 millennia. The vote, when it came, was closer than anyone expected. 734 in favor of escalation, 336 opposed. The Council had authorized the use of weapons that could destroy entire worlds. But as the planet killer fleets began assembling, intelligence reports suggested that humanity had one more surprise waiting. Deep beneath Earth's oceans, detection systems that had been monitoring Council communications for decades picked up the authorization for extreme. WEAPON's Dr. Kim received the intelligence in her command bunker and activated protocols that had been prepared for exactly this scenario. Initiate Lazarus Final, she ordered. Across the galaxy, human agents who had been living peaceful lives in Council space for decades received activation codes. The time for hiding was over. The Council planet killer fleets were still 2 days from their targets when the first reports of system failures began reaching Council headquarters. On Hegemony Prime, the planetary defense grid shut down without warning. On Vorthan Central, orbital weapons platforms went offline simultaneously. Council engineers scrambled to understand the cascading failures, but the pattern was too coordinated to be coincidental. Someone with intimate knowledge of Council infrastructure was sabotaging critical systems across hundreds of worlds. Marcus Chun had lived on Hegemony Prime for 8 years, working as a communications technician for the Planetary Defense Network. His colleagues knew him as a quiet, competent human who had immigrated to pursue better opportunities. They didn't know he was a graduate of Earth's Special Operations Academy. Initiating Final Protocol, he whispered into his concealed communicator as he accessed the main control systems. Years of patient work had given him administrative access to the planet's entire defense network. The shutdown took 17 minutes. When it was complete, Hegemony Prime, capital of one of the galaxy's most powerful empires, was as defenseless as an uncolonized world. Similar operations occurred simultaneously across Council space. Humans who had lived seemingly normal lives for years revealed themselves as deep cover operatives. They had gained access to power grids, communication networks, and defense systems by being patient, competent, and trustworthy employees. Ambassador Zethkar watched in horror as reports flooded into Council headquarters. The scope of human infiltration was beyond anything anyone had imagined. How many of them are there? He demanded. The intelligence coordinator, a methodical being from a species known for careful analysis, checked his preliminary reports. Initial estimates suggest several thousand operatives across our territory. They appear to have been in position for 5 to 15 years. The revelation was devastating. The Council's security had been compromised for over a decade. Every major world, every critical installation, every important communication hub had been penetrated by human agents who had spent years learning exactly how to cause maximum damage on Earth. Dr. Kim coordinated the galactic sabotage operation from her underground command center. Real-time quantum communications allowed her to direct operations across dozens of star systems with precision that seemed impossible. Hegemony Prime is dark, reported one of her coordinators. Vorthan Central has lost all orbital defenses. Arcturus Station is offline. What about the planet killer fleets? Kim asked. Navigation systems compromised on 60% of vessels. Weapon targeting computers showing errors. Several ships have lost main power. The planet killer weapons represented the Council's ultimate deterrent devices, capable of cracking planets apart or sterilizing all life on their surface. They had been built during an ancient war and then banned by treaty for over 3,000 years. But humans had studied the weapons during their years of infiltration. Sarah Martinez had worked as a maintenance engineer on the storage facility where the devices were kept. Her technical reports had seemed routine, but they had actually provided Earth with detailed specifications for the Freeway, Galaxy's most dangerous weapons. Initiate. Shutdown sequence Omega, she transmitted from her position aboard the lead planet killer vessel. The massive ship's power systems began cycling down in a carefully orchestrated sequence that would take hours to reverse. Similar shutdowns occurred throughout the planet killer fleet as human operatives revealed their true purpose. Admiral Kexthar received the reports from his position in Earth orbit, where his forces still maintained a tenuous hold on scattered surface positions. The scope of the disaster was difficult to comprehend. "Sir," his communication officer reported, "we're receiving an urgent message from Admiral Chun. She's requesting permission to board our flagship under a flag of truce." Kexthar considered the request. The human commander wanted to negotiate, but from a position of overwhelming strength. Her forces had just demonstrated they could disable Council defenses across the galaxy at will. Grant her request, he decided, but maintain full security protocols. Admiral Sarah Chun arrived aboard the Veltar flagship 3 hours later. She wore the dress uniform of Earth's United Defense Force, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone who held all the advantages in the coming negotiation. "Admiral Kexthar," she said formally as she was escorted to the ship's conference room. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." The alien commander studied the human who had orchestrated the most devastating military campaign in Council history. Chun was smaller than most Council species, but she radiated an authority that seemed to fill the room. "What do you want?" Kexthar asked directly. "To prevent further bloodshed," Chun replied. "Your council voted to use planet-killer weapons against civilian populations. We couldn't allow that to happen. So you crippled our entire defensive infrastructure?" Chun nodded. "We've been preparing for this possibility since our first contact with Council surveillance probes 50 years ago. Every human who left Earth carried standing orders to establish positions that could be used if diplomacy failed." The admission confirmed Kexthar's worst fears. Humanity's expansion into space had been a military operation disguised as peaceful colonization. Every human settlement, every trade mission, every cultural exchange had been part of a vast intelligence-gathering operation. "What happens now?" he asked. "That depends on your council," Chun said. "We can continue this war until one side is completely destroyed. Or we can establish a new framework for a galactic civilization." Before Kexthar could respond, his communication officer interrupted. "Sir, we're receiving an urgent transmission from Council headquarters. They're requesting immediate conference with Admiral Chun." The holographic projection that appeared in the conference room showed the entire Council assembly in emergency session. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the crystal chambers, but their attention focused entirely on the human admiral. "Admiral Chun," said the council speaker, "we understand you wish to negotiate terms." "I wish to establish principles," Chun corrected. "The current system has proven inadequate for maintaining peace." Ambassador Zethkar stepped forward. "You speak of peace while your forces have attacked installations across the galaxy." Chun's expression remained calm. "We responded to an unprovoked attack on our homeworld with measured retaliation. We could have destroyed your infrastructure completely. Instead, we disabled it temporarily to demonstrate our capabilities." The distinction was important. Human forces had shown they could cripple Council civilization, but they had chosen restraint. The message was clear. Humanity was offering the Council a choice between cooperation and destruction. "What are your terms?" asked the Council speaker. "Dissolution of the current Council system," Chun said without hesitation. "Replacement with a federation based on mutual defense rather than territorial control." The proposal sent shockwaves through the assembly. The council had maintained galactic order for 10,000 years. The idea of abandoning their system seemed unthinkable. "And if we refuse?" asked the Vorthan representative. Chun gestured to the tactical displays, showing the paralyzed state of council defenses. "Then you'll face the consequences of your choice. We've demonstrated that your current military doctrine cannot protect you from an enemy that understands your weaknesses." Admiral Kexthar realized the true scope of humanity's strategy. They hadn't simply won a military victory. They had proven that the entire council system was vulnerable to any enemy willing to prepare properly. "You're offering us protection," he said. Understanding finally dawning. "We're offering you partnership," Chung corrected. "The galaxy is full of potential threats. Your current system works well for maintaining peace between rational species, but it can't defend against enemies who don't follow your rules." The debate that followed lasted 18 hours. Council representatives argued about sovereignty, tradition, and the implications of accepting human leadership. But the reality of their situation became increasingly clear as reports continued to arrive about the extent of human infiltration. In the end, the vote was closer than expected: 512 in favor of negotiation, 487 opposed. The Galactic Defense Alliance that emerged from those negotiations was built on principles that humans had learned through centuries of warfare. Any attack on one member species would trigger a coordinated response from all allies. Military technology would be shared to ensure no single species gained overwhelming advantages. Most importantly, the new system acknowledged that peace required strength. The Alliance maintained fleets specifically designed to respond to threats that diplomacy couldn't resolve. 5 years later, Admiral Chun stood in the memorial chamber of the new Alliance headquarters, a station orbiting Sol where the old council chambers had been. The walls bore the names of every being who had died in what historians called the Awakening War. The inscription, translated into 847 languages, reflected the lesson humanity had taught the galaxy. Never again will unprepared peace invite aggressive war. Ambassador Zethkar, now representing the reformed hegemony in the Alliance Assembly, often visited the memorial.